Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 79 of the Dads and Ed podcast. We are excited, as always, to have you here. You may have thought we forgot about you. We did not. Just sometimes life happens, and you go on Christmas break, and you enjoy Christmas break, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, hey, it's Martin Luther King Day. Shouldn't we be doing something about this time? And here we are. We did make it into January. It's not February yet, so it's all good. But we're excited to be back. My name is Josh Allen, Tech Integration Specialist for the Lewis Central Community Schools. 4 wonderful kids. The oldest has a birthday coming up pretty soon. We will be officially in the double digits, all the way down to 1.5, and a beautiful wife. Valentine's Day is coming up, guys, by the way. Yeah. I had a dream about it the other night that I got an Apple Watch, but it wasn't like they said it was an Apple Watch, but you'd never seen an Apple Watch like it. So whatever. It was like I was told it was the was it Watch 1 or whatever, the first generation. And I hadn't even gotten flowers. So I have it on my radar now. I'm ready.
Nice.
Devin.
Yeah, that's good. The Valentine's Day, I just found out today, we have our first postseason basketball game. It's on Valentine's Day, which is, I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse at this point in time, but we'll be playing that night. And I got to say, you just said the Lewis Central Community School District. Can you only say that now because Urban Meyer has visited the school? Is that the way that works?
Yes. Part of the condition for Urban Meyer appearing with our security guard and head football coach and random band members in the newspaper is we are now to be referred to as the Lewis Central until the time comes that our 4-star quarterback chooses a school other than the Ohio State University.
Well, that's what I figured when I heard you say that. That was part of the terms and conditions for the visit. So Devin Schoening, instructional technology program lead in a school district in Iowa, Council Bluffs Community School District in Iowa. My 2 wonderful kids are 13 and 11. We're going to be 12 and 14 soon. We've got birthdays in the next month and a half. And my amazingly beautiful wife, Erin, as always.
So before I turn over to Kat, Devin, we need to come back. Your amazingly beautiful wife, who really took one for the team in marrying you, is also part of our research department. And she pointed out yesterday that your basketball team this year, who, let's be fair, you may have criticized in years past on this show, is tied this year for the most wins ever in school history. And you still have 4 regular seasons games left.
That is true. Yeah, she I love that she goes to so many games now, but I really do. She is a bandwagon fan because I never seen her at so many games in my life, and now she's all about it, which I love. It's great having her and the girls there all the time, and she even sent me a text today. She knew that the pairings were coming out for postseason, and sent me a text when they came out about who we were playing, and isn't that great? And I was shocked, but it's awesome. It's been a great year. We've got a great bunch of girls, and yeah, we've got 11 wins right now. 12 would be the school record. We've got 4 games left plus tournament, and it's been a lot of fun. I made the insightful comment before we came on the air that winning is a lot more fun than losing, and I will stick by that. Breaking news, and I will stick by it. But yeah, no, it's been a fun year, and like I said, it's great having Erin around for that, even though she is a total bandwagon fan.
Didn't expect that one, Brent. Let's move on quickly.
Coach, that's good stuff, and at least there's some people in the seats this year, so watching. But hey, so Brent Callett here from Kansas City area, development executive at Apple, and overseeing Kansas, Nebraska, and the Dakotas. 5 amazing kids growing like weeds. I was talking to Josh pre-show about my youngest will turn 3 shortly, and working on potty training that little fella and looking forward to getting out of the diaper business soon enough in my life, because I should have bought stock a long time ago in diapers. Missed that. And an amazing wife, Josie, by the way, too.
Yeah, you better not forget that.
No.
All right. Well, if you would like to get in touch with the show, you can always tweet at us at Dads and Ed. Use the hashtag Dads and Ed at any time. You're welcome to email us, dadsanded@gmail.com. If you missed part of the show, you can check out the web replay on dadsanded.com. Or if you're more of an audio podcast fan, check out Dads and Ed in iTunes or Google Play. Or no, never mind. Sorry, I read the wrong or. That was well enunciated, though. We are also a very proud member of the Education Podcast Network, unless they start listening to this, and then they may kick us off because I can't talk. You can check them out at edupodcastnetwork.com. These guys are always growing. There's always, it seems like every time I check back on the website, there is a new podcast in the Edu Podcast Network stable. So very cool. All right, water cooler topic. Actually, if you are on Twitter, I just posted a link to it. Comes from our friend Shelly Mulwinkle. Shelly and her husband Brandon live in a smaller town outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. I've known them for a number of years, and Shelly has started, I think, within the last year, maybe even 6 months, started blogging for a website out of Lincoln, sponsored by one of the hospitals. And she had a post this week entitled, "Am I a wisher, talker, or doer?" And based off of Mike Smith, who is a local motivational speaker and skateboarder and all-around fantastic presenter. If you have a chance, look him up. I want to say, and Kat, correct me if I'm wrong, at Mike Smith Live on Twitter.
Correct.
Sound right? Okay. Has done a number of presentations in the area, and I've had our admin put him on our short list of people to have. But one of the things that he discussed when he was at Milford was being a wisher, a talker, or doer. Wisher would be someone who creates a wish list of things to accomplish. And this is from Shelly's post, which will be in the show notes and also is on Twitter. A talker, someone who talks about doing things but never really executes the task. A doer is someone who puts their feet, heart, and head into actions. And Kat mentioned we were kind of talking beforehand, and both of us, and Devin, we didn't include you in this conversation, but you're welcome to chime in now. Really took a step back and thought, is this what we're doing for our kids? Are we pushing them to be more than wishers and talkers? Are we pushing them to be doers and actually go out and take advantage of something? I mentioned to Kat, in the local paper, they interview kids, and this week was, what do you want to do what would you do to improve the world? And my son's answer made it in, surprisingly enough. And it was fantastic. He goes, well, I want to build self-driving cars for the elderly. And I want to design gas pumps that automatically pump gas for you so you don't have to get out of the car. And my wife and I are like, okay, this is how we're going to start this. He's like, well, I can't do that till I get to college. And we're like, no. There's steps you can do now. And you said it, so we're going to do it. Just to kind of get them down that path and wish for things, but take advantage of it. Do it. So, Kat, you want to chime in there?
First of all, I just think at Shelly Mulwinkle, and that's SHELLY Mulwinkle, MOWINKEL. Great follow on Twitter and social media in general. Great person. Just really have a high deal of respect for her and Brandon, her husband, who's principal in the same district that they work in together, and love her writing style and the things that she's written about. And I don't know exactly, Josh, I think you mentioned, 6 months. I believe it's been at least a good year maybe, but I could be wrong. But I know that I've followed her writing and I've always appreciated her posts. And this one caught my eye for, I don't know, just a lot of reasons, but because she's coming at it from kind of writing from this like mom perspective on the blog site. But it's interesting too, is I saw it on Facebook actually initially, and just now kind of looking through the comments from people. And I had recently, I don't know, a few weeks back, I posted a little quick video about, does sometimes fear dictate perhaps what you do or not do? And I was just throwing kind of a theoretical question out there. It was kind of funny because I had people chime back to me saying, hey, oh, quit, you know, kind of suck it up, Buttercup, and get the writing or getting it. And I was like, I really wasn't asking for me personally. I was just kind of like, I was curious to know, like, what do others think? And so it's interesting to see some of the comments coming in on Facebook on her post about that, how fear has driven them to not do certain things, whether it's finances or, you know, they're just like, well, what's someone going to think, or I'm not going to be able to accomplish that, or whatever the case might be. And I'd like to think of myself as a doer. And I was kind of sitting there evaluating myself tonight going, okay, like, what have I said I wanted to do and have not done, you know, or what am I saying I will do and, you know, am accomplishing, I guess. And so I'd like to think that I'm doing pretty well, but I think it, like one person wrote on her thing, you know, what a great wake up call for me, you know? So the beauty of someone writing like Shelly or any of us or anyone out there listening is that you never know who you're going to touch with that writing or that video that you create or that post. And for me in 2018, one of my goals is to try to do a little more. That was kind of one of my mantras, was to do more perhaps in a video type aspect. And I don't know, I still really don't even have my head around all of that. But one of the things I'm really trying to work toward is this idea of getting fear off my list of like why I don't post something. And I'm still very uncomfortable in the midst of it. So that's where it's kind of speaking to me the most. I think can certainly as a dad do a heck of a lot better in my doing, because I can tend to be lazy. I can tend to like, just be like, oh my gosh, they're driving me crazy. And I'm like, so it's a good wake up call for me as well to really improve at my doing versus just wishing and talking.
Well, the thing I think is interesting, and the thing that really resonated with me from the post, and as I was trying to think through it, was this idea that maybe everybody isn't all of those things, and how important it is to be connected with people who can help with that. I would certainly consider myself probably more the wisher and what was the other one? Now I've lost my mind.
Talker.
A wisher and a talker, right? But I know that, and there are things I'm doing. I think I'm a doer in some realms, but there are some things where I think I need to pair myself up with people who our beliefs, our philosophies, our actions kind of mesh with each other. So there are a lot of times that I know, even in my job, I feel like I have lots of good ideas. I have a hard time sometimes carrying those all the way through to action. And there are people that I work with that are probably much better at the doing than they are the kind of coming up with the ideas. So I think that part of it is true too. The interesting thing is I had a conversation with my kids the other day where we were just kind of talking about ideas. And I kind of made this comment to them in jest, just kind of being funny about, man, I think I've got all kinds of ideas. And whenever I die, whenever that happens, you guys are going to have to carry on the legacy of doing all the things that I had these ideas to do, right? So I've got the ideas to do it, and I probably won't do it. And it's on you guys to now do that whenever it is that I die, hopefully in many, many, many years from now. But I think that's sometimes true. And I need to be better probably about follow through in the doing. But I wonder if it's also about making sure we're pairing ourselves and matching ourselves up with people who we kind of create those opportunities for each other.
And I would say you got to kind of be a little bit of both, or all three, I guess. I am probably, and we've had this discussion about the differences between the three of us and how we really work well together, because we are not the same. I am not the big thinker of the group. To pull the curtain back from behind Dad's and Ed, I do a lot of the setup, but I very rarely write a question unless I know the person and you two don't, because you guys ask much better questions than I do. And I know my place. I can set up YouTube and I can get all this other stuff done. And I enjoy that. I really like it. But I don't always see the big picture. I am much more focused on the task. Today we made books on our iPads with kindergartners. I love that process, but I can't tell you where that falls into our K-12 technology spectrum of what we should be doing. I know that it's going to build skills for later, but I can't articulate that off the top of my head. So I need to have other people that come up with these crazy ideas so that I have something to think about. So sometimes, it is kind of putting some of those things together. I may understand processes, but I may not understand what that process could do if I thought a little bit bigger. And I think that's always kind of been, that is something that I've consciously worked on. I'm actually working on a Go Open workshop for here in a couple months. And I am pouring myself into the whole thought process around it. I don't want it to be a one-stop shop. I want it, Scott McCloud, who was a guest on here, has long been one of my favorite people to listen to, and he is so far over my head. That's the type of person I strive to learn more about and be more like, so that I can do some of that bigger wishing.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes I wonder if I've held myself though to a standard, Josh, like that, like a Scott McCloud or others, where I'm like, they impress me, right? And I'm like, they're engaging, and I enjoy listening to them or learning from them or reading their tweets or their blog posts. And it's held me back from maybe writing the post because I'm like, well, it's not of Scott McCloud material. It's not of X person.
That's a great point.
You know what I'm saying? And again, I'll admit I've been guilty of like not putting something out there based off the fact I'm like, well, this isn't that great. Like, no one's going to care, those sorts of things. And not that that's really even what it is necessarily about for everyone who's doing it or whatever. And I think I can tend to overthink stuff and kind of psych myself out of maybe doing, instead of, and so that's what I really love about our posts is just, am I a talker? And man, on the basketball court back in my heyday, I love to talk a little trash like that. I mean, I'm telling you guys would have hated me on the court, but I backed it, man. I could hit the threes. I was, slashing to the lane, dishing it up like Magic Johnson out there. But it's funny because I do kind of pride myself in accomplishing things, and as I near the completion of my doctorate, I'm proud of that. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's that's one of those things I'm doing in the background that is just happening, right? And yet at the same time, I've got 5 kids and a job and, all that good stuff that comes with life. And like, I'm not asking for y'all to pat me on the back, but I'm saying like, that's a doing thing that I'm doing. And I'm proud of the fact that I think I'm going to knock it out and finish it, but there are other parts of my life where I could certainly improve.
Do you feel like, and this is for both of you, do you feel like you and your wife are different in this aspect? Because I feel like my wife, and not negatively, because this is going to come out negatively, but it's probably more of a wisher and thinker than I am. And that's good for me because, more gets done and more ideas are done with the kids than probably if I was around. We just stick with the status quo. Do you guys feel that way in your houses too?
I think to a degree, yeah. But I think my wife and I, Erin and I, certainly complement each other. I think nicely in that way, but that doesn't mean that I've self-admittedly called myself a wisher and a dreamer or a talker or whatever it is. But she has some of that too. But if we need to get something done, she's probably the one who has the plan to do it. But I think we complement each other pretty well.
Yeah. Kat?
I can see that, Devin, from afar. It seems like, even just, I don't know, you guys, it seems like you guys have a really good partnership. Like I can see that. Josh, same with you, just from my experiences around you and your wife and knowing you guys. My wife, I tease, and she'll never listen to this, but she's like a taskmaster. And she's a list maker. And it comes from her mom. And the apple did not fall far from the tree. But like, so I've become more and more handy in the years of our marriage, which I'm also kind of proud of. I'm a doer there, and I appreciate that's one of those things I'm kind of proud of. So like just today, I was hanging up some rack that she wanted for the backpacks in our mudroom and fixing this chair and kind of shoring it up because it was wobbly. And, so anyway, it's funny because I would say I'm definitely of the we're both hard workers in the sense of just work ethic, I think. And so like I do feel like both of us are kind of doers. And she can get on me, man. If I try to be lazy, like it's like get up off your butt and do something, you know, and that's probably a good thing for me, because otherwise I'd probably weigh like 250 and have diabetes or something, you know.
Well, and I would say, like, even I take this into basketball. I'm really lucky this year on our team that I have great managers too. So there are things that I'm not good at. Like, I am notorious with my players and coaches and managers for, you know, forgetting the marker and not having my board and, you know, not having the keys or whatever it is. Like, that's just not my thing. But I can give a heck of a pregame talk, you know, and I can coach a game. But the details part of that whole thing, like, they just know. I mean, it's almost embarrassingly so for me. Like, they expect me to come to practice or to a game forgetting something. You know, I even made myself a little checklist this year to try to remember everything. But my manager is so good; she just does it for me. It's just like, because she knows that it's great. And it's an area that I've always said I need to be better at. But I also find people around me that I, you know, we complement each other well. So my coaches, my players, my wife, my whatever it is, you know, we just find ways to complement each other.
I'll say this though, from a kid's perspective, I'm sitting here thinking about that aspect. Like, I've not been as good as I probably should be, from the sake of making them do things. So we're getting to this point of kind of like chores and making your bed and, you know, those sorts of things. And like, we've probably enabled them some by doing it for them at times. And that's something that I'm trying to like have patience in when I say, hey, Charlie, go do that. And he's a 6-year-old who's going to drag his feet and like not do it well. And like, you know, and I know it's like the longer term marathon here we're looking at, not the sprint. And I'm thinking, man, I got to improve at that as well, because I feel like that's an area I'm kind of failing as well.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, that blog post we have put on the Dad's Ed Twitter account. Be sure to give Shelly a follow as well. She is really a fantastic person and does a great job writing. So, all right, Dad Moment of the Week. My dad moment of the week is a little bittersweet. 2 weeks ago tomorrow, we put my grandma in hospice care. My grandma is 86, and she is my last grandparent that is alive. I guess I do have a step grandfather that I don't see too often, but for the last few years, my grandma's had to have platelets to keep her energy up. And over Christmas, she got an infection, and all the platelets would fill up her lungs. And the doctor said, well, if we drain your lungs, you're going to bleed out. And so she said, all right, I'm done. I'm going to check out. And so she said, I want one more round of platelets. We're going to have a good time. And it has been, last week was just fantastic. So most nights I would leave work and drive the hour to go see her and hang out for a few hours and come home. And it was great. She is completely with it. Even tonight when I was there, she is, she is going on 2 weeks of not having platelets. And so she is exhausted and not awake for a lot of it. But last week we called my sister, who is out in Seattle, who just got married in July. And, we're on Skype or FaceTime, whatever we were doing. And my grandma says, where's all the kids at? And we're like, oh man, grandma doesn't know who she's talking to, all that. And all of a sudden she goes, thought by now you'd have a whole house full around there. And it's like, oh no, that's just grandma being grandma. She's got her smart aleck remarks and is just going to town. We were talking to her, my sister, again another night, and my sister was saying how her husband was making supper for her. And my grandma goes, hey, Josh, you hear that? There's a husband that makes supper for his wife on a regular basis. I was like, wow. All right. Thanks, Grandma. So it's, my wife and I've talked. This is, you never really know when it's going to happen. But to have this week to, kind of reconnect with some of my cousins who I've kind of lost touch with and has been fantastic. So it's going to come to an end soon, very soon. But it's a great end to a fantastic life. So next up, some a little happier.
I'd say for me, I'm going to go with back to kind of the doing theme of Shelly's post. We've started. I went and bought a 52-week devotional book for the kids at night, kind of around Bible stories and things. And my wife, of course, joins, and it's just been a lot of fun. And the other night we got kind of talking about bullying at school, and my wife and I were kind of asking, has that happened to you? Like, have you ever been rude to someone, kind of thing? And it was just a cool conversation. And I told my wife the next day, as I was kind of reflecting on it, like how cool it is to kind of sit as a family like that at night and kind of just visit, and kind of everyone's snuggled up together on my son's bed and, around the floor or wherever in a kind of a circle of sorts. And like, so it's really cool. And humbling at the same time to know that like the two of us are influencing them so greatly, and kind of helping guide them through life, which, as you guys know, K-12 is not the easiest place to be for kids. And so anyway, you want them to be making good decisions at school. You want them to be, of course, a kind person and someone who's compassionate and all those things. And so anyway, it was one of those moments for me where I was kind of like, wow, how did this happen to me? Like, how did I end up here? How did I get so lucky? Kind of thing. So it was a cool moment.
That's awesome. Mine's going to revolve around basketball again, just because that's been my life for the last 2.5 months. It's great. We played last night, and having my daughters there and old enough and understanding what's happening, and high fives after games and hugs before halftime locker room, and in the locker room with us a lot of times before and after games is always pretty cool. And it's a silly little thing, but I love having them around for that. I've talked before, I know on here, about we do some team activities outside of basketball where we'll have our girls out at our house for a dinner or for a movie or for a game night or whatever it might be. And I just think it's amazing to have my daughters around for that time now. I don't think I could coach, or at least not very long, if I didn't have that time with them around.
Absolutely. Great points by both of you. Before we get to our sharing is caring part, I want to give Superfan Bill a shout out. He is checking in tonight. Also, the Kleinmeyers apparently have turned off The Bachelor or whatever fancy shows on tonight, and they're watching us. So shout out to them. Lynn did comment. That's what makes fight. For our talk about the the wisher and doer and talker, and having people that are compatible. And she points out that's what makes finding your professional partner so valuable. You each bring something to the table, and you push each other's thinking. And definitely, Lynn, with you being in our district last year, definitely were a great model for that. And definitely, I know better what I need to work with. And thankfully, we found someone to replace you who not quite as bubbly. But maybe that's okay. No offense. Just kidding. Actually, I'm meeting with Lynn tomorrow morning, so I'll probably hear about it then. Anyway, sharing is caring. My one, I got to give a shout out. Our boy, Clay Reisler, who may or may not be watching. He did text me earlier. Starting a new podcast, Advantage. They are on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play and all that stuff. They did a trial run last week or this week. I don't remember now. But I think the first episode drops on Monday, the 5th, I believe. So I will put a link to their Twitter account from the Dads and Ed page. It is a fantastic concept. He's kind of been picking my brain just about processes, because it's what I love. Because he will have himself, who's been teaching 15 to 20 years. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. A retired teacher and a second-year teacher, all talking about educational topics. So just the different perspectives they come from. I am very excited to see how this goes. So Advantage Podcast, make sure to subscribe. Devin, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I will. I'll tweet it out in just a second here, but recently read Jimmy Casas, who was on the show before, his newest book called Culturize, which is all about building great school culture, both school culture and classroom culture. And as I read it, and maybe this is always true, I think I felt the same way maybe when I read Dean's book about joy. But I heard every page, I heard Jimmy talking. And Jimmy's passion and enthusiasm is contagious and infectious, and I think it's one of those books that was part inspirational story and part here's how you do it. And I really enjoyed it. And one of the great things about it, and Jimmy's always so open, is there was a part as I was reading in the second, I think it was chapter 2, and I had a question. I was just like, God, I'm not sure about this. I really question how this is done. And so I hopped on Voxer and sent him a message and just said, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm having trouble with. What do you think? And it was just kind of this great little back and forth. And it reminded me again, and Jimmy would do this for anybody. This is not a something, I'm saying, hey, look at this. I can talk to the author. I think Jimmy would respond to and talk to anybody about that. But it was that idea of just how cool it is to be able to connect with something like that, with a book that kind of resonated with me, but I had some real questions about. And so if you haven't had a chance to read it, Jimmy's book Culturize, which again I'll tweet out in a second here, is a really good read about why it's so important to build and foster great relationships and to really care for the people in our buildings and not just the job.
Absolutely. Jimmy is a fantastic person. Actually, the first night I met him, I remember he wasn't able to come to one of the conferences we were hosting, and another friend of the show, Joe Mazza, was going to. And so Jimmy sent him a message as we're standing there saying, hey, they didn't want to have me first and then lower it down to you. So they're going to do you first, and then I can raise the bar back up. So he's a fantastic guy.
Yeah, he is.
Before we get to Kat, Steven Sauter, another friend of the show, checking in. His son Harvey does the same thing. Steven's a coach at York, and Harvey's always around wanting to be the basketball or football players. And he talks about setting that good example too, that their players do for his son. So good to see you, Steven. Catlett, you're up.
Yeah. And before I start in my sharing piece, I just want to say I may or may not have interviewed Lynn Kleinmeyer for my dissertation study. She may or may not have said that Josh Allen was who got her rolling with the Professional Learning Network. But so that was kind of cool little tie for me as you were sharing there about Lynn earlier. I was sitting there thinking, yeah, like I just talked to her about this, perhaps, maybe. I don't know. So
maybe
that doesn't make it to my dissertation committee. Please don't say anything. But
allegedly, as she likes to say.
It's all alleged. It's all alleged. So, yeah, I might, like, who knows? Could maybe not graduate because I said that now. But anyway, I've kind of been digging into coding a little bit of late, based off of the Swift Playgrounds app and the iOS, Apple iPad atmosphere and Mac atmosphere. And so I want to share, I think I said this, Josh, to you perhaps pre-show, about the Swift Teacher podcast. And there's a gentleman named Brian Fowdy who is doing that podcast. And I listened to one of his interviews with Fraser Spears. I don't know if y'all follow him on Twitter, but anyway, he's an interesting guy that I feel like I've followed forever. He's one of the earlier ones that I followed. He's a pretty outspoken guy. One of those guys that I kind of consider brilliant. And so it was interesting to listen to him, where you hear a voice and get to put kind of a voice with a face and a name, because he lives in Europe somewhere, England type thing. So I doubt I'm going to meet him. Maybe someday, but like chances are not. But so anyway, so it's good stuff. And I've just been getting my head wrapped around all of that, and kind of what you were speaking to with your son, Josh. Like, this is one we talked a little again in pre-show about my kids in coding, and there's so much coming about with jobs that didn't exist, a decade ago. And it's funny, speaking of bachelors, my wife loves it, and so I'll sit there and act like I do, and I can say that 'cause she's never going to listen to this. But so as I'm acting like I do, we're sitting there and the show's starting. There's all these gals chasing after the guy, and you know how they'll put their job title up. And this was so funny to me. One of the gals is a social media manager, and my wife is like, "What is that?" And here's an anti-social media person, my wife. And so I start to kind of explain what my understanding of that position could be and is. And she, and I was telling her, I said, "This is what I'm telling you." And there's a slide that I have that we utilize where that's on there, right? It's like this idea of like these jobs didn't exist a decade ago. And so I was kind of laughing inside thinking like, yep, this is something I can bring to anybody who's willing to listen in the realm of perhaps making some changes in education for the future, because whether we like it or not, it's here and it's not going away. And so while I don't think coding is for every single kid, I certainly think that kids should be exposed to it, just like we expose them to other arts and music and such. And so I'm curious to see how that will continue to develop in the next, say, decade, and what that will look like for kids, say, like our kids, or when I think of your son, Josh, or whatever, and as they grow into, things that they really like or that they get passionate about, will it be that? And here's my other 2 cents, and I'll stop talking, but I'm not convinced that my children are going to have to go to college. And here I'm just about finished with my doctorate. I value education very much, obviously, but if my son or daughter, came to me and said, "Hey, this is the route I want to go," and it has to do with something that maybe doesn't exist right now, but by the time my 3-year-old gets to be a high school senior, I just want to support them in that journey. So if he says he wants to go to college, I'm certainly going to support that. But at the same time, I just feel like the world is really evolving pretty quickly, and it has a lot to do with technology, and coding is a big part of that. And so, and programming. So it'll be interesting so that's part of the reason too, I'm listening to that Swift Teacher podcast. And quite honestly, I'm trying to learn up, because I don't feel like I'm a coder or a programmer. And so, as I mentioned to you, Josh, just using my kids as guinea pigs with stuff at home, I'm kind of pacing my own way through some of this stuff. And same as I would learn Snapchat, I want to know it because kids are there. Like, I don't have to necessarily use it, but I want to know it so that I can speak to it educatedly, when I'm talking to somebody. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because a lot is changing very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I even remember when I had to take a HTML course for one of my master's degrees, and I'm like, what? I don't care. Well, I used it today because when I put a link into our website, I accidentally put a space at the end of it. And so when the teacher emailed me to say, "Hey, why isn't my link working?" and it pulls up with was it percentage sign and 2 or whatever a space means, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I did wrong. I can go in and do it. So I think I'm with you, Kat. I want to know more about coding, and I want to get there even just from my own personal knowledge. I mean, it kind of goes along with what with learning alongside with kids. So, all right, we've come to the end of the show. We promised a big announcement. We'll get to that in just a second. Devin, I just realized, you know what 2 weeks from today is? Valentine's Day. Yeah.
Yep.
We're not going to do a show that night for 2 reasons. First, because it's Valentine's Day. Second, because Devin is coaching basketball.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's that. So we'll be back in 3 weeks.
Yes.
We're obviously getting older and need more extended breaks in between this rigorous activity that we do, talking, tweeting. I have to give a quick shout out to Taylor Siebert. Mr. All-Knowing Social Media just figured out where the live chat was in YouTube. So shout out to Taylor. Glad I could teach you something. Taylor now has 900 on me. I have 1 on him. So anyway, all right. Last but not least, Kat.
Want me to take her over?
Yep, it's all you, buddy.
Well, so 79 episodes later, that's crazy to think, almost 80 hours of content that we've created with a lot of amazing people and just ourselves, like in podcasts like this. I reached out to these guys earlier, a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks back, and let them know that I was going to have to bow out of my job duties in Dads and Ed podcasting for kind of a variety of reasons. It's certainly not because I don't love it and would continue on, but some of it's dictated around my new job and some restrictions around some of the things that I discuss. I may or may not agree with all of that fun stuff, but I want to make sure I keep a roof over my children's heads and food on their plates. And so I've had some different meetings of late where, as I continue to learn and grow in my new position, there's a bigger thing than just Brent Catlett. And so as much as I love to discuss all of this fun that we do on the show, I have to be kind of cautious around what I say, because of the fact that sometimes the company I work for can be a target for folks to take advantage of maybe something I say and twist it and so on and so forth. And I certainly don't want to end up on my boss's desk with something that I have said or done or posted. And quite honestly, as I was grappling with this with my wife and kind of sharing my thoughts with her and even some of my colleagues now on my team, some of them, it was just interesting. And so as I processed through this idea, coming into 2018 of doing more, kind of what we were talking about, it's kind of ironic that Shelly's post came about. And it did, because I want to kind of put myself in I don't want to say a different league, and not against anyone. I'm just saying in my own different league. That because I kind of want to try to be more transparent, but what I feel like I'm up against at the moment is perhaps I'm not going to be able to do some of that because of just the nature of the beast with this new role. And it is what it is. And it's like one of those things where I'm not, how could I say, I'm not like upset, I guess, about it. It's just that I can't continue on in the capacity that I'm continuing based off of some of our kind of rules, if you will. So I appreciate you guys reaching out and saying, hey, let's do one more, kind of finishing up episode. And I look forward to being bigger than Superfan Bill. And,
you got some catching up to do. He's got 79 episodes on you.
Yeah. Well, I was in them. He can't count that. So like, I will certainly continue to support and listen and chime in even on some of the live shows perhaps, but I will just have to kind of be taking a back seat at this point and watching you all see where it evolves, and maybe someone else can jump in and be that other person if you all see fit. But I know it's in great hands, and I have to tell you guys, like, and this, but I love both of you. I think the world of both of you. I have a great deal of respect for both of you guys. I've absolutely enjoyed being a part of this and appreciate that you all have let me join you on the journey. Because to think that when we set out to do this, it would be 79 episodes later, 5 years later, I never would have thought we would have put that kind of content together. And I'm extremely proud that I've been a part of it. And so I just kind of look forward to watching you all continue on past me. And again, it's not about me, or it's not about Apple, to be quite honest with you. But like, anyway, it's time for me to call it quits for now. And who knows? I was thinking about that idea of being a grandparent, or when you were talking about Clay's podcast, like I can't wait to be the retired guy who can just speak whatever the heck he wants to speak. Because I swear to you on the Holy Bible, like I will come roaring when that time comes. But I have no one else but the golf course to manage me. So it's a matter of time for me. I can tell you that.
There's going to be a whole list of blog posts drafted that the day that Brent gets a different job, send.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think you set up our next gig together as grandparents in Ed, which was kind of weird. Like Grandpa's in Ed. Yeah. I'm not sure that's going to be a thing, but we'll see. Like, I feel like you set it up pretty well.
Oh, man.
That could be a thing. And Bill's already chiming in, Superfan Bill Little, saying that the show will be better without me. So
he had to get one more in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Hey, Brett, obviously we've talked about this off of the show, but it's certainly not the same. One of the great things that I think that has come out of this is we took a pretty simple idea of wanting to get together and talk, and we never really let that slip away. The great thing I in my personal opinion about our podcast is it's just the three of us who want to get together and talk, and maybe we have some really cool people on who are smarter than us and have some great conversation. But it will be it's certainly a bummer. I mean, we're so happy. I know, speaking for Josh here too, I think, but so happy for everything that you're doing, and totally understand where this comes from. And who knows what kinds of things we'll do in the future. But it certainly won't be the same regardless of what happens moving forward.
Yeah,
Yep.
The thing is the beauty of even my new role and the fact that I got Nebraska is kind of ironic to me in the current territory. So I'll be at NETA. It's not like I'm, as you guys know, I'm not just like disowning you as friends and slash the listeners of the podcast and everybody else. It's not about that at all. But it's just one of those things like I have to do, which kind of stinks, but it is what it is.
Stephen wondered, first, the boss, Chris Nessie, gives a little shout out on our live chat on YouTube. Stephen Sauter wonders, is it going to be like The View or a little bit of drama? And I wonder, maybe we give away a rose. First off, yes, I agree with Devin. The show wouldn't have happened without Brent.
Yep.
Having side conversations with both of us, even though Devin and I knew each other. But we are very much appreciative of all that you have given to the show, and definitely will miss having you around on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. As far as the show from here on out, we do, Devin and I do plan on keeping the show and keeping it going. We still really enjoy what we do and having it on here. We have talked about possibly getting a third host. We don't have anyone. Chris Nessie just posts rotating co-host auditions. That's an option.
It is. We've got the rest of this year to do it. There's the season. We should.
Yeah, we'll see. Chris, you in? What night do you want? Not February 14th. So we, like Brent said, this is, just a couple weeks into it, and Devin and I haven't had a lot of chances to sit down and talk. Chris says he'll grow a beard by 5 tomorrow night. That is a requirement now. 79 episodes in, you do have to have at least a 5 o'clock shadow. So yeah, we don't have any other plans other than we are going to keep Dads and Ed going because we do enjoy it, and it will be different, and that's fine. I mean, we talk all the time that about change and embracing change and doing things that are different, and we're going to roll with that. It won't be the same, and we know that, and that's okay. So
can we change our Voxer chat name to something else so I can still keep boxing you guys and you can say that again?
Yeah.
Remember with Dr. Maz when we changed?
Yeah.
Again, so like I can still talk to you guys on Voxer?
Yeah. So funny story. I think we've talked in the past about how Voxer is our, kind of how we chat usually at 6:30. Like, what do you guys want to talk about tonight? But Joe Mazza, fantastic friend of the show, and really one of the inspirations, behind this with the work he does with PT Chat, and now he's with Maker Dads and all that. He set up a Vox. We had one, and we just called it Dads and Ed because it's the three of us, and that's what it's about. And all of a sudden, one day, he started his own Voxer group with the three of us and called it Dads and Ed. And we're like, wait a minute, which one did we put the one thing in? So we renamed it Hosts. So yeah, we'll have to figure out a new name for it now.
Yes.
Dads and Ed and the former host.
Yeah.
Oh man. So anyway, we Devin and I will be back on the 21st. Keep tabs on Twitter at Dads and Ed for more information as we lead up to that. But until then, have a great night.